Welcome to ParaTruth. What's up, everybody, and welcome to a brand new episode of ParaTruth Reborn. This is a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. My name is Erik.
And I'm Justin.
And forgive me as I give you this disclaimer, but I have a bit of a cough, so there's a chance that this is going to be a weird episode for you guys. But, Justin's here to take over as necessary and as needed. Also, I seem to be skipping a lot of shows lately. So it's a good thing Justin is half of the show and does typically a better job on his own than I do. So thankfully he's around, but I have been very busy with work and there's a chance that I'm going to end up missing a couple more episodes this summer, but we'll see. Hopefully we'll figure it out.
Hey, we can all just be happy that you're actually getting work.
This is true. I could be a bum sitting on my couch doing nothing, playing video games.
Doing your deliveries and
doing my deliveries. Oh, I hated it. I hate it. It's not bad. It's just after so long,
Yeah, if you're doing it all the time. Yeah.
Anyway, so today we decided to talk not a little bit. We're going to talk a lot.
Extensively.
Yes. If you notice the name of the show, it's called Through the Event Horizon. And that's because we wanted to take the opportunity to discuss black holes, but not just black holes in and of themselves, but really all the theories, all the mythologies and legends that surround them, and what could actually be on the other side of these things. So the big question is, could black holes be gateways to other dimensions? And are there alternate universes hiding behind the event horizon? And what we want to do is figure out what modern science says and what about the paranormal implications that could come into play here. Now, before reviewing all of the facts and speculation, let's share at least what we know personally about black holes, right? So this is something that's typically very broad, I think, to a lot of people, but it goes into a little bit more of a scientific aspect as well here.
I figured, you and I have studied astronomy enough to kind of go over what we personally know without going into all the facts. And, you probably know more about black holes than I do, but I knew it was a collapsed star. I knew that, scientists tell us that you wouldn't survive going into a black hole because it what they call stretches you or spaghettis you, and you would just be dead. And that, getting caught in the event horizon is not good because then you're definitely going in the black hole. But a lot of the other facts that I came across, some of it I knew, some of it I didn't, but the majority was kind of new information for me. How about you when you were looking through the stuff that I found?
I mean, a lot of it wasn't really so much new information because this is a topic I've been studying for years now. Sorry, on and off, just for fun, and every once in a while I get this kick where it's like, oh, what's happening in space today? And that's what I put in Google. And I often end up seeing a lot of new information on black holes because it's one of those particular things within the sky above that's really studied. Sorry, guys. Quite often, pretty regularly nowadays. We still don't know a whole lot about them, but there's a lot of hypotheses and theorizations about black holes. And there is some science, though, some scientific evidence also that gives us information about these weird bodies in space that are very intriguing and give us some pretty good insight as to what they actually are. With that said, there's still plenty of things I didn't know and that were new And that's because we went, I mean, when you did this research, I mean, it went way down in the rabbit hole. And I'm not talking rabbit holes and like going off in various directions, but it's all pretty much, you know, singular to the black hole. Like all these theories that we came across, all the look at those eyes. Look at those kitty cat eyes.
That's the first time I think we've seen his eyes on camera.
Yeah, so you know, I think there's a lot of information here for me as well that was very much new and exciting. One thing I do want to mention is the whole idea of spedification, which is what they call it. This idea of when you get to a certain point at the event horizon where you kind of get stuck or something gets stuck. In this case, we're talking most likely light or star. It basically stretches the light away from its primary source, and it just gets slowly, well, it appears to slow down. In reality, it's being pulled in at light speed practically. Into
it's just what we see compared to what is actually happening.
Right. And with that said, there's speculation that if like a spaceship were to go over there, or if a person who can just say we can survive in space with, you know, air or without air, whatever, and flow over there, we would basically be ripped and torn to pieces. But that's just a theory because we don't really know like how mass of an object plays into the factor of spedification.
Right.
Because like our bodies have a much smaller mass than something, say a sun, a star. There's a good chance we get pulled in and we're just pulled in with no being torn apart and stuff, right? So that's some things that still need to be considered. But nonetheless, for the most part, it is believed that whatever gets pulled in is simply destroyed, and that's the end of it, as far as we know.
Right. All right. So, what we know about black holes from science is where this is going now. I'll give you guys the definition. A black hole is a region of space with gravity so intense that nothing, not even light, can escape. This extreme gravity arises from the immense concentration of matter within a very small space. Essentially, it's a point of infinite density, the singularity, surrounded by a boundary called the event horizon, where the escape velocity exceeds the speed of light. Now, I've known all of this part of a black hole for a long time, so if you guys know this part, feel free to just kind of zone out for a minute. If you don't, all this information is really, really interesting. Now, the singularity is the whole of the black hole, basically. The central point where matter is compressed to an infinitely small volume with infinite density. The event horizon is basically the point of no return, where you're not getting out of that black hole. If you hit the event horizon, you're done. Light can't even escape the event horizon. The gravity is so immense of a black hole, and it's due to the concentration of mass into a tiny space. Although black holes are massive, it's pulling so much mass in. The space there is much less than what it's pulling in. This gravity is so strong that it bends space-time around it. And no light emission, because nothing, not even light, can escape. Black holes are inherently dark and invisible. Now, how do black holes form? I already kind of mentioned it. Typically, black holes form from the remnants of massive stars that have exhausted their nuclear fuel. When that happens, the star collapses under its own gravity, its core implodes, and the outer layers are blown away. This process can lead to the foundation or the formation of a stellar mass black hole, which can then grow by absorbing surrounding matter. And supermassive black holes, far larger than stellar mass black holes. This is the part where I got a little lost because I had never heard some of this before. But the supermassive black holes I knew because they absorb other black holes and they just get bigger. Most of these are found in the center of galaxies. So eventually, at some point, Earth might be sucked into the black hole that's in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. Now, how can we see black holes if you supposedly can't see them? That was my question. Because yes, I've seen the black holes that they show on science fiction and stuff like that, but typically you wouldn't be able to see this if you were in a spaceship. So while black holes are invisible, their presence can be inferred by observing their effects on surrounding matter and light. For example, material falling into a black hole can heat up and emit X-rays. The black hole's gravity can bend light from objects behind it, a phenomenon called gravitational lensing, according to NASA science. Astronomers use various telescopes and techniques to study these effects and learn more about black holes. For example, the Event Horizon Telescope is a global network of radio observatories that function as a single Earth-sized telescope. Its primary goal is to observe and image supermassive black holes, specifically focusing on the hot material just outside the black hole's event horizon. And this technique allows astronomers to study black holes in detail, including imaging through event horizons and testing Einstein's theory of gravity in extreme conditions. Why don't you go over the multiverse theory?
Yeah, for sure. So the multiverse theory is actually something we've discussed at least once, but I think a couple of times on the show.
Oh, I think we've gone into it extensively, and that goes into like what people are calling time shift jumps and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. So now the multiverse theory in physics and cosmology proposes the existence of multiple universes, potentially an infinite number in this case. So it's beyond our own observable universe, as in it basically lies parallel in some extent, or to some extent. Now, these universes, sometimes called parallel universes or meta universes, could actually have different physical laws, constants, or even entirely different dimensions. Basically meaning it may look and kind of seem like our dimension, but it'll act differently according to, for example, how gravity works or how water moves, and how is life affected by certain cases of solar flares and things like that, and so much more, like way beyond anything that I can personally understand, unless it's written in a comic book. Now there is a couple of different versions of this multiverse theory, or various theories about it. The first one is the Max Tegmark's 4 levels. Now, level 1 is called the infinite universe. This level proposes an infinite universe, meaning that somewhere beyond, I swear I'm not laughing, I'm trying to hold back a cough, y'all. This level proposes an infinite universe, meaning that somewhere beyond our observable universe, there are likely identical copies of our own universe and everything within it. And this is where we get kind of that idea of doppelgangers around the world, people seeing themselves basically, and possibly is, linked to interdimensional time travel and whatnot.
In effect, it could explain paranormal phenomena in a way, as far as ghosts and stuff like that, too.
100%. Level 2 is the bubble universes. This level suggests a more diverse multiverse where basically different bubble universes might have distinct physical constants, dimensionality, and particle content due to eternal inflation, a proposed extension, basically, of the Big Bang Theory. If any of that sounds confusing to you, you're not alone.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the scientific explanation was kind of hard to read through, that's for sure.
Yeah. Level 3 is quantum many worlds. Now, based on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, this level basically suggests that every quantum event with multiple possible outcomes results in the creation of a separate universe or universes, each representing a different outcome. And we've talked about this on the show as well. In fact, one particular example was for, we've all had this, maybe, at least I would imagine most of us have, where you're driving down the road and you have this intrusive thought that, oh, maybe I should just ram this car going 60 miles an hour into the guardrail and kill myself, basically, right? And then there's a theory that because you thought it actually did happen, but it happened separately into a new universe, and that new universe is created, and it's a timeline in which you died doing just that. And so then there's a ripple effect throughout time and throughout the time space continuum, in which it just continues to build new universe after universe after universe based on decisions of version prime. Now, which exactly is version prime, I don't know. That's
right.
A whole different thing.
I think people wanna claim whatever reality we're in right now as prime, but we can go into whole speculation as to I don't think we're in prime anymore. But or like you have a close call with nearly being hit by a bus or something, and in another reality you did, because at that moment it split,
right? Which
to me is and I think you're kind of on the same thing. It's a little hard to believe that one, because it's like, then how many universes are out there if they're even the most minute thing that happened,
right,
and didn't?
Well, I mean, and that's why, we see with some of these previous levels that in many of these cases they're infinite amounts. They're just never ending. Yeah, there's not much more to say on that.
Yeah.
So level 4 is the last one of Max Tegmark's 4 levels, and that is called the Ultimate Ensemble. This level encompasses all possible mathematical structures that can be described, suggesting that every mathematically consistent universe exists. And that basically, I think, and correct me if you have, or if I'm wrong, or you have a different view on this, but basically whatever can is and just happens to be. It's just
pretty much is what that's
eternal.
Saying.
Yeah. Now we have also Brian Greene's 9 types, and now mind you, these are all just theories, and some of them you'll see actually kind of crisscross a little bit. There's a little bit of an intersection between all of these different views on the various levels of the multiverse theory, but there's also a significant, I think, difference between some of these as well, and you'll see that here in Brian Greene's 9 types. The first one is the quilted, which is an infinitely large universe where, due to chance, identical or very similar regions of space-time exist, essentially forming a patchwork quilt of parallel universes. And you can kind of, I think in your mind's eye, you can kind of figure that out. If you're looking at a quilt and you figure each one of those little blocks or squares on the quilt is a universe, but it's nearly identical to the one next to it with varying differences that separate it. We all live on a big quilt, y'all.
That's what I think the astral plane kind of looks like. So kind of similar.
Yeah. The next one is inflationary, and this is a result of eternal inflation. We're expanding space creates bubble universes, just like we just heard, with different physical constants and properties. So very similar to the bubble universes of level 2 of Max Tegmark's. Number 3 is the brain. This is BRANE. And this is the universes basically existing as brains or membranes within a higher dimensional space, which can interact and potentially collide, leading to new universes. And I think this kind of comes from the idea of even 2 separate galaxies colliding and becoming a new super galaxy in which new life is formed and there are new possibilities and things like that. Number 4 is cyclic. This is the case in which universes with finite lifespans that undergo cycles of expansion and collapse where new universes are born from the remains of the old. And this is something that is very popular today in 2025. We see this a lot on TikTok and social media where people say, have you noticed a difference? Are you experiencing something that just doesn't make sense? Like the world's different, but you don't know what it is. And these people are saying that basically there is a version of our Earth they can also, which you can also consider as a universe, which is kind of fading away and a new one is being born, and certain people are entering into that new Earth while the others are remaining in the OG or whatever the previous one is. And it's the same thing here with the universe. The idea kind of being that as you know, to use game references, level up in your life, then you move on to a bigger, better plane, basically, of existence. Whoa, buddy.
He just leveled up.
Yeah. So after cyclic, we have landscape, and this one is based on string theory. This proposes a vast landscape of possible universes with different physical laws and cosmological constants. And I think, you know, a lot of these I feel like are more or less kind of the same thing.
Very similar to the others. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just, you know, we're seeing it differently. So we have a quilt in one section, and now we have this landscape. It's just basically the same thing, but a different view of how it may lay out. 7 is the holographic. I love holographic because, you know.
You skipped quantum.
Did I?
Yes.
Oh, my bad, y'all. I guess there's quantum first. You can't have holographic without quantum.
Yeah.
So quantum, which is number 6, is similar to level 3 of Tegmark's scheme, where every quantum event causes the universe to branch into multiple possibilities. And that one's kind of weird. In this case, it's like what we were saying earlier. You create an action, and that action immediately splits into multiple reactions, each different, you know, like, let's say you're in a fork in the road and you decide to go straight. Well, now you just created a branch where other versions of yourself just went left, right, or whatever other way those roads go, and they're all leading to different places. And as you do that, it just continues to branch out, kind of like tree roots or an actual tree, because, you know, branches. Yeah. Anyway, number 7. Now we're at the holographic.
Yep.
Is based on the holographic principle, which suggests that the information content of a volume of space can be encoded on its boundary. This particular type of multiverse could arise from different projections of reality. I'm not entirely sure what that means, but I have my assumption because I want to kind of relate that to this idea of somebody we bring up very often, or have brought up very often, and that's the idea of Slender Man. And that's the idea that we can manifest a reality based on, we could say mass hysteria, or a super belief in a particular creature that doesn't exist, or entity that has never existed, but was simply drawn up or written up, and then boom, all this belief goes into it, and you've just manifested a new reality that didn't exist prior.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty good assumption.
And that goes the same way with like tulpas and things like that people often, you know, create.
Right.
Number 8 is simulated, and this is the hypothesis that our universe and others could be complex simulations running on advanced computer systems. This is the Matrix, y'all, and we've seen that over and over again within the paranormal community on all the social medias, and of course you've heard it right here on ParaTruth. It's been discussed time and time again, and it is actually a belief system that is growing very widely. It's becoming an expansive idea, and people are starting to accept it. Right.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes I really wonder if we're not in some type of simulation with, I will say this, as of 2020 and moving past 2020, things have gotten so weird that I'm like, there's something going on that we can't see.
Right. And the number 9, known as the ultimate. This basically is the same as Tegmark's level 4, in which it encompasses all mathematically possible universes.
Now, yeah. The interesting part about all of this is, you know, hypothetically, the reason we bring up the multiverse theory is that possibly black holes being gateways into these different realities or dimensions. And although science says that we wouldn't survive going through a black hole, there are hypotheses and theories that state that we actually could. Not the black hole that we're talking about right now, but there's other forms of holes. White holes are theoretically regions in space that are the opposite of black holes. And in science, you always have, to any action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So kind of the same concept there. White holes pull matter and light in, or I'm sorry, while black holes pull matter and light in, white holes are theorized to expel matter and light. So kind of like it's the back end of the black hole, the opposite side. They are predicted by some interpretations of Einstein's theory of general relativity, but there is no observational evidence for these existing. The theoretical basis that white holes are derived from the same mathematical solutions that describe black holes in general relativity. These solutions suggest that just as there's a boundary, the event horizon, around a black hole where nothing can escape, there could also be a boundary where nothing can enter. Connection to wormholes. White holes are sometimes discussed in the context of wormholes, which are theoretical tunnels through space-time. A wormhole might connect a black hole to a white hole, allowing for a path from one region of space-time to another. And then there are some theories that suggest that white holes might be black holes viewed in reverse time, which is, I don't even understand that statement.
Well, yeah, that doesn't make sense. I mean, I've heard obviously the theory that the white hole is the opposite side of the black hole. You know, obviously where anything that gets pulled into the black hole has to go somewhere. It doesn't just vanish and disappear. It has to be spit out at some point.
Yeah. Well, I think that's kind of what it's trying to say is it's like watching a black hole in reverse is what I think it's hinting at. You know, in this view, matter would not be pulled into a singularity, but would instead be expelled from the singularity. Now, I mentioned wormholes, and again, this is all theoretical and hypothetical. We've talked about how we've thought at times that we go through wormholes in our lives, because you get to a certain point and you have no idea how you got there, or time seems to go faster going one way than the opposite. Wormholes are hypothetical tunnels through space-time, potentially connecting distant points in the universe or even different universes. They are based on solutions to Einstein's theory of general relativity, but their existence remains unproven. While science fiction often depicts wormholes as traversable shortcuts, their actual stability and whether they can be crossed by matter is still an unknown. Why are they hypothetical? Although mathematically valid within general relativity, there's no evidence to suggest that wormholes exist in our universe. One major challenge is their stability. Wormholes are predicted to be incredibly unstable and would likely collapse almost instantly. You actually do even see this in science fiction because Star Trek, as an example, they always talk about a stable wormhole and finding a stable wormhole. If we were to find one, it would be almost non-existent. And then to remain open, wormholes would likely require exotic matter with negative mass energy density, a substance not yet discovered. what are the potential implications of wormholes? If wormholes do exist and are traversable, they could offer incredibly fast travel across vast cosmic distances, potentially even enabling time travel, which in our understanding of reality and science is not possible. Some researchers even suggest wormholes might play a role in dark energy and help explain the universe's accelerating expansion. The concept of wormholes is a popular theme in science fiction, often used as a plot device for interstellar travel and other fantastical scenarios. Can we find wormholes? Sometimes some scientists propose that wormholes could be detected through gravitational microlensing, where a wormhole's gravity would bend light from distant objects, like we talked about with a black hole. Other researchers suggest that the subtle effects of wormholes on space-time could be detectable through precise measurements of cosmic microwave background radiation or other cosmological observations. Could something survive the trip? This is the part that gets interesting. Now, as we know right now, no, nothing can survive a trip through a black hole. The extreme gravitational forces within a black hole, particularly spaghettification at the event horizon, would rip apart any object, including humans, long before reaching the singularity. However, that's not to say it isn't possible. Right now, that's the theory that we know because of what scientists can see. But let's play cosmic roulette here. What if something could survive a trip through a black hole? Is there any version of reality, science, or metaphysics where that's possible? You guys are going to have to buckle up because we're going to go beyond the laws of physics and diving into the realm of almost but not quite impossible. I'll have you go over the spinning gate.
Sure. So the spinning gate, we're going to begin here with the Kerr black holes. That's KERR. Now, most people, of course, picture black holes as giant space vacuum cleaners, right? Basically crushing anything that gets too close to it. But not all black holes are actually created equal. I mean, that's like a life thing to take to heart, right? Not everything is created equal. With that said, though, enters now the Kerr black hole. And these are basically spinning giants. And math says they might not destroy everything quite instantly like we believe black holes to do. Inside a Kerr black hole, the singularity is shaped kind of like a ring, not a point. And to make that a little more visual, you can kind of consider a black hole as almost being cone shape in a way, kind of spiraling down into a smaller point where everything gets basically sucked in and destroyed and pushed, kind of like a tornado, right? In a way, if you're going through the top of it.
A space tornado.
A space tornado. Yes, that's the next sci-fi movie. Now, hypothetically, you could actually pass through that ring instead of getting crushed by it. Now, some theorists suggest this might lead somewhere else, maybe a different place or a different universe. And whether or not that's true, of course, we have no idea. It's, again, just speculation, but it's still pretty cool, right? So we'd still have to really survive the deadly gravity, the radiation, and, of course, being stretched into spaghetti if indeed something with a small mass would be stretched into spaghetti. But if somehow, some way we are able to do all of that, we may find ourselves on the other side in a new universe, or just nothing but nothing. We just would cease to exist, basically.
Or, you could end up on the other side of the galaxy, kind of like we talked about with wormholes. It could be some type of tunnel to another spot in our current universe.
Now, when it comes to wormholes and exotic matter, we can kind of add a sci-fi twist, right? So what if we could actually stabilize the passage? In this case, wormholes, those being theoretically theoretical shortcuts through space-time, might be real, but they're only stable if you've got exotic matter. Okay. So bear with me. Exotic matter equals a hypothetical stuff with negative mass. If we could harness it, then wormholes and possibly black hole passages might stay open long enough for safe travel. But of course, we haven't found, and by we, I mean the scientists who actually study all this stuff, because I'm not going to find it. And if I do, I'm stumbling upon it, and hopefully we'll make a lot of money on it. But I don't know if that happens. Space stuff. Anyway, we haven't found exotic matter yet, but dark matter and dark energy were once theoretical too. And of course, you know that both dark matter and dark energy exist, which is both enlightening and kind of crazy.
Yeah.
To think that.
I mean, just look at cryptids, and a lot of these cryptids are supposedly species that we thought to be extinct. So now we call them cryptids because we thought they were gone.
Right. And of course, we're not talking about your Bigfoot in this case, but we're talking about sea creatures that are suddenly coming back, or various creatures of the jungle that are suddenly appearing after decades and decades of missing. We've talked about this on the show too, the Tasmanian tiger, which many believe to be extinct, and yet there are still sightings of this creature to this day. And I do believe that they still exist out there somewhere, and it's kind of really cool. But that's really where the true word of cryptid and cryptozoology came from. It's these creatures that basically once were and became extinct, and yet is believed to still exist out there. Right. Bigfoot and all that is kind of like a branch.
Yeah. Basically. Yeah. It was kind of all absorbed under this one umbrella term.
Yeah. So the information of paradox and quantum transfer. Don't get me started on paradoxes, because this is something I spent so many times debating and talking with people about, especially when it comes to the Flash and all the comic book stuff and how paradoxes work. So anyway,
isn't it so fascinating how comic books and science fiction bring us to theoretical physics?
Right. So if you're not confused by now, we're about to stir the pot and make it really freaking confusing. So what if it's not your body that makes the trip, right? So let's say we actually get into this wormhole, the black hole, whatever, we can stabilize it, we're able to travel through it, we survive the spedification, whatever else is happening, and we get to the other side, but we are physically not there in human or bodily form, but our information is. All of a sudden, I'm thinking of Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, right? Because that's what happens. They zap somebody and they appear as all these little tiny particles in billions of pieces, and then turn up as this little tiny person inside of a microwave. Folks, that's what we're talking about. Willy Wonka was onto something, and now we're here theorizing it.
That's the theory behind Star Trek's beaming technology too. It would break you up into millions of pieces and put you back together.
So if this was the case, black holes might actually encode data about everything they consume on their surface, aka holographic principle. It's possible also that in another part of the universe, that data gets reassembled. Now you think of a conscious upload or a quantum teleportation device, right? Not physical survival, but some form of continuation. So you wouldn't walk through a black hole, but a version of you might wake up somewhere else. And we kind of have this same theory when it comes to death as well, right? When the body dies, the spirit moves elsewhere. You know, for me, if you believe in the Lord, you know, you travel from this earth, you die, and boom, you're in the presence of the Lord. But the same thing happens with any spiritual I don't want to say any spiritual entity, but any human who passes away who has a spirit or a soul has to go somewhere. And so there's something in between in which the information traverses and ends up in this new plane of existence. Now, there's oh man, I am doing so well at holding these coughs back, y'all. I'm telling you. Now, there's also this simulation theory and dimensional shifts, and we've talked about dimensional shifts as well. And obviously, a lot of this stuff we've talked about so many times. But now we have this kind of metaphysical twist, right? And I know we've gone a long way here before talking about the metaphysical, but here we are. And the question is, what if black holes are just portals and massive simulation, right? That's the biggest question. I mean, there are people who believe that UFOs that we see out in the sky are actually just portals opening up for various entities to cross between. Many will say angels will use those portals, right? And they're not actually mechanical ships, but just these interdimensional wormholes, basically. Now, in a simulation, black holes could function as code gates between the levels or realities, right? So maybe they don't necessarily destroy anything, but transfer everything that they eat. You might not even move physically, but instead you just shift layers of reality. And that could be, a reasonable explanation behind déjà vu or lucid dreams, in which they could be echoes of passing through one of these dimensional gates. And I don't know about you guys, but there have been times where I have déjà vu and I'm able to predict what happens next based on my memory of the events that happened when I had that déjà vu, which is wild, right? That's something that shouldn't happen, especially based on the scientific aspect of déjà vu, which many claim is you or us being able to see something, but our brains not process it. And therefore the information gets mixed and slightly distorted and separated until they re-meet each other. And then boom, we think we are reliving something when in reality, it was just our mind catching up to the thing we were seeing, which maybe, but I believe there's something much more metaphysical there happening.
Yeah, well, and I think that's the whole point why we wanted to bring this topic up, because we want to link, the metaphysical and paranormal possibilities along with, everything that we talk about, simulation theory, pretty much anything in the paranormal community can kind of go into what is happening in a black hole or what's on the other side. Now, could spirits or consciousness travel through black holes? Erik has kind of already alluded to this. Theoretically, yes. If consciousness is more than brain activity, say a quantum or energetic form, it might not obey the same rules as matter. Some theories in quantum consciousness suggest that the mind exists as information in black holes, despite destroying physical matter, might preserve information thanks to the holographic principle. In paranormal terms, if spirits are pure energy or consciousness, not just cosmic trash compactors, conscious black holes could act as interdimensional conduits, not just trash compactors. Some metaphysics propose that these entities could traverse such extreme environments because they're not bound by physical laws. Are NDEs, or near-death experiences, symbolic of entering a black hole? Again, symbolic answer, yes. Many NDE reports include a feeling of being pulled through a tunnel, intense gravitational sensation or floating, emergence into a light or new realm, a shift in time perception or complete timelessness. You will always hear about people that come back and they don't realize that it's several hours later. These closely resemble descriptions of falling into a black hole, particularly crossing the event horizon, where time and space behave unpredictably. While no scientific evidence links NDEs to black holes, the imagery and psychological experience of entering the unknown, the void, if you will, or a new dimension makes the comparison rich and meaningful. Is our universe inside a black hole? Short answer, it's all hypothetical, but research is being done to prove it in modern science. Some physicists propose that our universe could be the interior of a black hole that exists in a higher dimensional universe. This is called the black hole cosmology. Had never heard that theory before, but in a way it makes sense, because if we are circling a huge black hole as it is right now in the middle of our galaxy, what's to say that that galaxy isn't floating inside of another black hole?
All right. Well, then you get into the whole, what we just talked about in terms of the various concepts of infinite timelines and infinite parallel universes. Because in that case, you're looking at a universe within a black hole, within a universe that's in a black hole, within another universe that's, and it just continues. It's a mirror. It's like you guys all know what it's like when you're like sitting at one of those mirrors. There's like 3 mirrors around you, right? Or so. Maybe it's 4, but it's the thing that creates that infinite mirror look, right? You have all the lights and it looks like you just go on and on and on forever. So the repetition infinitely. And that would be more or less what would be happening here, although not saying that they are identical mirror realities. But the fact that it's a galaxy within a hole, within a galaxy within a hole, and it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
Then that theory kind of starts to place itself, and it kind of starts to make sense. But the problem is trying to figure out whether or not we actually exist within that black hole, because to this time, like currently, we still don't know what the edge of space is. We cannot see that far. There's theory behind it. We know that it's continuously expanding, but then that's questionable too, because if the galaxy is expanding, but the black hole condenses everything and pulls it together, well, now we're seeing 2 opposite things happen. It's contradicting. So that's very I don't know. It's interesting to me.
Yeah.
It doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Well, and when you were talking about the bubble universes, the image that comes to my mind is at the end of the first Men in Black movie, where these giant aliens are playing with marbles universes. Yeah. That's what I thought of.
100%.
Now, lastly, we get into glitches, dreams, and dimensional crossings. Quantum entanglement and consciousness connections is theories that I've actually looked at a lot and then feel my brain turning to mush because I can't really comprehend all of it or don't want to. I think that's the more proper way to look at it. Entanglement suggests instant communication across space. Could consciousness work the same way? Some believe, yeah. And we just kind of went over that. If we our individuality, our being, if you will, is something more than just our brains, then 100%. Quantum entanglement is when 2 particles become linked in such a way that changing one instantly affects the other, no matter how far apart they are. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. And I think all of us that follow science and follow paranormal topics have seen the different scientific experiments that people have been doing with quantum entanglement and proving that it's actually happening. Now, apply this to consciousness. Some researchers and mystics suggest the mind itself may be quantum, meaning thoughts, awareness, or even souls could be connected across space and time through entanglement. Think of the term soulmate. That kind of encompasses what this is talking about. Now, this could explain shared dreams, twin telepathy, spiritual synchronicity, paranormal downloads of information. So if you see or hear people saying, oh, I'm getting a download right now, and it's usually mediums or psychics or somebody who's sensitive that's saying this. This suggests quantum entanglement in a sense. If consciousness operates non-locally, like beyond the brain, then we might all be entangled at a deeper universal level. And kind of goes into the term the collective consciousness in a sense.
Mm-hmm.
Now, are black holes causing leaks between realities? Short answer, totally possible. Just like we talk about anything we talk about in the paranormal community, it's all possible. Is it feasible? Probable? Maybe not, but it's all possible. Some physicists speculate that black holes may connect different parts of the universe or different universes entirely through wormholes or Einstein-Rosen bridges, which are wormholes. If that's true, they may not be perfect gates. They might leak. In paranormal terms, these leaks could manifest as dimensional slips. Think people or objects vanishing right in front of you. And we've seen that in many videos, although many of these things can be faked. So remember that. Glitches in the matrix, duplicated people, time loops, and reality errors, such as birds just seemingly being stuck midair, airplanes seemingly being stuck midair, and crossover dreams, déjà vu, and EVP anomalies. Now, crossover dreams meaning people having the same or similar dreams, or people being in each other's dreams. And if black holes creates a tear in space-time, information or energy might bleed into our universe, especially near strong gravitational anomalies or cosmic hotspots. Now, taking all of that in, Erik, what are your final thoughts? Do you think black holes could hypothetically be actual portals and not just something that's going to kill us instantly?
I mean, as I said, anything's possible. And I like to theorize that, or maybe it's hypothesized that, I think it is vastly possible. One of my favorite movies of all time is Interstellar. And that's, a story about a group of people who are trying to find a safe haven for a people on a dying planet. And our main character, the main character, comes into contact with a black hole and gets pulled into it. And it kind of shows all these various realities. It shows the fifth dimension, basically. And we kind of see how the chords are being played through various realities and various times through his life, but also through parallel universes as well. And so I like to think that
kind of like the quilt theory is what it looks like to me.
Yeah, kind of very, very similar, right? And it almost seemed like the way they built it, and obviously this is science fiction, but this isn't, the movie isn't based on any sort of scientific fact, but is definitely based on scientific theories and mythologies and things like that regarding the whole idea of another dimension. But they're also, how they did it, how Christopher Nolan did it, was he kind of created these almost like strings that played across all these various realities, right? All these various universes, possibilities, both past, present, and future. And depending on which one was pulled, which one was like plucked or whatever, it would create a ripple effect and change how time was seen for him. And so, taking that into consideration, again, that this is just a story that was made up by some very brilliant writers, very fantastical writers at that, I think there is an aspect, or could be an aspect, in which that does exist within black holes. Now, we see it as it is, from the lights, light being stretched to the various objects being destroyed because of it. But we can't see so deep into that black hole to know what is actually within or on the other side. And again, light is very different from like a physical object, right? Light itself isn't necessarily physical. So light can be stretched and manipulated. We can do it here on Earth using magnifying glasses, using telescopes. We often manipulate light with our cameras. And so how would a physical being, a human, a spaceship, things like that, how would that interact within a black hole? Would it truly be torn apart? Or because it's a solid mass, would it just go in and that's it? Maybe pick up a ton of speed, you know? And then that, I think that's the biggest question though, too, is like at that point, if we ever do reach a black hole, in which we can actually put a ship or something through, right? If it does get destroyed, is it being destroyed by the immense gravity, or is it being destroyed by the immense amount of speed that it's suddenly moving at, and it can't hold up against that, right? Because we know based on Einstein's theory, we'd have to to move through the past, we'd have to reach a maximum of 99.9% of light speed in order to shift from one point in time to another, which is virtually impossible to do. But if the black hole is as strong in terms of its gravity as we believe it to be, then that would happen in a fraction of a moment. Once you get beyond or close to that event horizon, it's just a flash and you're gone, right? And the stretch that we're seeing seems to be in slow motion, but in reality, it's moving well beyond natural light speed.
Well, I something that I am starting to really think about after going through all of this is the movie K-Pax. If you've ever seen K-Pax with Kevin Spacey.
I've not seen that.
So this guy, they find this guy just on the street, and he claims to be an extraterrestrial from the planet K-Pax. And he's embodying this human man's body, but he claims that he traveled straight to this person from a very young age. They were communicating, visiting, and then eventually his friend called him because his family was murdered and he needed to talk. But he's going into this river and essentially becomes brain dead or psychotic. But this K-Pax entity essentially possesses his body, and he explains about how the travel works, and that is basically going essentially through a black hole is the way that it's kind of explained. But after reading through all this, I seriously wonder if maybe the physical part would die because you're going through immense speed, immense gravitational forces. But maybe the consciousness goes through somehow. How that would look, I don't know. But something that you mentioned is, we have all of these different stories that people come up with, both for scripts and for books. What if we're tapping in, meaning you and I, because we're both writers, into a consciousness that's out there that's giving information, and we just don't realize it about these other universes that are out there.
Right.
Now, is it feasible or even in the realm of reality that we know it, that giant monsters are walking around destroying cities and killing people? No. But with what we just talked about with the multiverse theory and traveling through a black hole to get to them, who's to say that in some reality aliens haven't taken over? We have these giant creatures living in our oceans. Maybe somewhere in another reality, we've actually been able to go into space and travel space in the manner of seconds or minutes without aging drastically. So when I saw that theory, I was like, I think that's the one that kind of makes the most sense with what we understand about black holes right now.
Right.
So is it physically possible? Highly unlikely, in my opinion. But I always say anything is possible. So, anything else we need to cover before we close out for this episode?
No, I don't believe so.
No. All right. So we've got a lot of great episodes coming up for you guys. I hope you guys have been enjoying all the content you've been hearing on ParaTruth Reborn. At some point, I do want to get Michelle DeRockers on to just be a guest with us and talk. And there's just so much information that we're kind of coming across that's keeping the paranormal interesting again to us, where we're not getting bored. So make sure you like, share, subscribe, no matter where you listen or watch. Also make sure you're checking out all the shows that are on United Public Radio Network. And this has been a pre-recorded show on 107.7 FM New Orleans and United Public Radio Network. Until next week, where you will find us same time, same channel. My name is Justin.
And I'm Erik. Peace.